Maybe you've loved someone who always needed space, someone who disappeared the moment your heart opened, leaving you alone with silence, no explanation, only nights asking, "What did I do wrong?" You're not crazy, not weak, and not too sensitive. You're trying to love someone who isn't ready to take responsibility for closeness. And your pain is real. Sporadic texts, vague promises, half-hearted intimacy. Then they return as if nothing happened, pulling you into a loop of hope and letdown. The hard truth: understanding childhood wounds does not mean tolerating repeated harm. Kindness is not a ticket for others to cross your boundaries. This video is for you, the one who wants clarity over romance, safety over short-lived sparks. Today we'll unpack avoidant psychology with honest precision. Why they withdraw when you step closer. Why they come back out of loneliness, not growth. And most importantly, the 5 non-negotiable boundaries if even one appears. You must choose yourself. This isn't revenge. It's a compass to walk out of any relationship that makes you smaller. If you've ever begged for less just to stay for more, stay till the end. I'll give you a clean boundary framework, word-for-word scripts so your voice won't shake, and how to tell genuine remorse from performance. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, not just to catch the next part, but to remind you, starting today, your heart has a guardian you. As we walk through the doorway of pain the introduction just touched, look at the psychology of the avoidant like a map: clear, sober, unsentimental. Avoidants aren't merely hard to reach. They've trained a survival reflex called deactivating strategies, turning down attachment to preserve a sense of control. When loneliness hits, they pull you close, because internal signals flag a deficit of connection. Messages increase, tones soften, sentences sound like promises. But the moment intimacy requires real presence, their nervous system blares a siren, and they push away, go cold, go silent, and rationalize with tidy lines. "I need time. You're overthinking. Relationships should be natural." This push isn't random. It forms a loop that hooks you on, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Brains don't crave smooth love. They crave intermittent reward. When warmth today is followed by disappearance tomorrow, your dopamine gets hung on the hook of uncertainty, and uncertainty yanks you toward them harder than they move toward you. That's when you start reshaping yourself to fit their tempo, speaking less so you won't scare them, shrinking needs so you don't pressure, accepting ambiguity so you won't lose them again. But be honest, you're not keeping them. You're maintaining the minimal intimacy they permit. And when you're exhausted, you let go. You learn silence. You try to move on. Ironically, that's exactly when they return. Many will call it fate, proof they've recognized your worth. Yet on closer look, most don't come back because they've grown. They come back because options ran out, because the noise between short flings faded, because novelty dulled, because they missed the state you once created, being loved fully, with no demand for reciprocity. They return not to love you, but to be loved by you. That tiny linguistic shift is a massive shift in your destiny. Avoidants measure closeness as risk, not shelter. When they say, "I miss you," it often means, "I miss how you made me feel." The warmth, patience, and your talent for rearranging the sky of your emotions to fit their safety zone. So if you open the door for nostalgia alone, history repeats. Sweet week 1, vague week 2, withdrawal by week 3. You wonder what you did wrong, and the hard answer is, you weren't wrong for loving. You were wrong for sustaining a structure that won't allow love to grow. Try a different lens. Don't read their behavior with a thirsty heart. Read it with the standards of safety. A genuinely grown return comes with 3 pieces: awareness of their own pattern, ownership of the specific harm caused, and a measurable plan to change behavior. Miss one, and you're not at a second chance. You're back at the old starting line with new wallpaper. Name what lives inside them. Fear of being engulfed, the core belief only self is safe, shame about having needs, and image protection around independence. All of it is real and worthy of compassion, but none of it entitles them to your boundary. Compassion sees the whole picture. Enabling stands in a burning room and calls it warm. When they pull close in loneliness, don't mistake it for commitment. Treat it as a nervous system seeking soothing. When they push at intimacy, don't contort yourself to fit. Treat it as a test of their willingness to take responsibility for their reactions. When they return after months of trying, don't rush to call it destiny. Ask, what did you learn about how you love while we were apart? What will you do differently in the next 30 days? How will I measure it in actions? These questions aren't punishment, they're filtration. Love doesn't need you to be a cop. Love needs standards, so both people are safe. You can empathize with their childhood, you can acknowledge their effort, but you must not re-sign a contract with vagueness. Ambiguity is fertile soil for push-pull to regrow, and push-pull is the treadmill that addicts you to what wounds you. Your healing begins by choosing clarity over short-term romance, clarity about cadence of contact, how conflict is handled, definition of the relationship, and boundaries around prolonged silence. And you're allowed to set a small, practical runway, consistent dates, scheduled check-ins, commitment to respond within a defined window, and progress logged in behaviors, not promises. If they're truly ready, you'll see them step into hard spaces with courage. If not, you'll watch them gravitate back to the familiar minimum. Both outcomes are a gift because they give you data to decide, not hope to wait on. And as you stand before the knocking door, remember, your heart doesn't need a rerun. It needs an ecology where closeness doesn't trigger alarms, where love isn't an endurance test, where the return isn't powered by inner emptiness but by the maturity to stay. If that isn't present, the wisest move isn't wider arms. It's higher standards. Sometimes what saves you isn't one more forgiveness. It's one last act of fierce loyalty to yourself. From here we go on not to reopen the wound, but to close it properly. In the last section, we mapped the avoidance psychology. Pull close in loneliness, push away at intimacy, return driven by emptiness more than growth. Now it's time to plant clear mile markers along your road, so when your heart wants to turn back, your mind has something to hold. Treat these red lights like signs on a cliffside, not to scare you, but to keep you from stepping one pace too far. And today we face the first, often the one people most want to excuse, yet the one that tells the clearest truth about your value in their eyes. Dating or sleeping with others during the breakup. It sounds socially acceptable in a culture of taking space, but the truth few name is this: it isn't processing pain, it is market sampling. When someone leaves to figure themselves out and immediately dives into new connections, they are prioritizing patching a void over facing their part. They're not standing in stillness to learn, they're seeking noise to forget. And if, after that trial and error carousel, they knock on your door again, be sober. More often than not, they're not back because you became special. They're back because you're accessible, comforting, familiar, willing, low friction. I say this as an old friend would. You are not a plan B, much less an empty seat to slide into when other tables are full. Love isn't like picking a meal. It is a commitment to nurture. People can be lonely and make mistakes, but how they face pain reveals their character. Those who honor love will protect a healing space for themselves and for you. They don't borrow someone else's body to cover an inner void, then return expecting you to open the door, as if nothing happened. But we were broken up. Your mind asks this when it's trying to rationalize hurt. Yes, breakup grants freedom, but freedom is not equal to dignity. When someone can quickly share physical or emotional intimacy with others while apart, the deeper message is clear. I can put you on a shelf and take you down later. Your heart is not decor. They were just exploring who they are, you say to soften the sting. There are many forms of exploration: reading, therapy, long walks, writing letters of apology to themselves and to you. Choosing other people to explore with is a way of repricing the relationship by the market, placing love onto a chart of what's newer, easier, less demanding. And when they return, they're not coming back to you. They're coming back to the experience you provided. They miss being loved unconditionally, your willingness to carry the discomfort of closeness for them. That's not awakening. That's self-centered nostalgia. You might say, everyone errs. I agree. But boundaries aren't moral verdicts. They are environmental protections where love can grow. If they filled their emptiness elsewhere and reappear as if untouched, refusing is not cruel. It is fidelity to the standard of safety. Look directly at the subtle consequences of market sampling. It plants a long-term seed of doubt. Each late night, each silence, your memory whispers, maybe they're comparing again. You get pulled into a relationship of invisible competition just to be kept no longer love, but auction. Love can't survive that environment. It withers because you spend energy proving rather than bonding. So is there any room for true remorse? Yes, but remorse must arrive with structure. If they dated, divided by, slept with others while apart, the minimum proof of growth includes 1. Specific, non-defensive acknowledgement, naming the behavior without blaming feelings or circumstances. 2. Understanding the impact on you, describing the wound in your language, not theirs. 3. A verifiable repair plan, transparency, individual therapy, boundaries with exes or entanglements, and a time frame for assessing progress. 4. Acceptance of consequences, including your right not to reconcile. Without any one piece, the apology is a dry bandage on a deep cut. And remember, you are not obliged to grant temporary residency in your heart so someone can live and learn at your expense. Your heart is not a training program. Some will object. We agreed we could see other people. If you truly agreed, be honest about the motive. Was it to create healing space for both or to ensure one person wouldn't have to be lonely? If the latter, it's a contract of avoidance, not maturity. Neurologically, you can't metabolize deep grief while continuously spiking dopamine through new interactions. You simply delay the reckoning. Delay doesn't build attachment capacity. It builds an upgraded avoidance habit. I know this may sting. It touches a very human memory. All of us have been weak, needed a random shoulder to get through a night. But the cost of that weakness cannot be billed to you forever. You become larger than your yesterday when you dare to call behavior what it is, to call a wound, to call market sampling what it is, an affront to your worth. From here, if they knock, you have a calm, steady line. I respect your journey. To walk together, I need to see how you respect this pain, not in words, but in a structure of change. If that's too much, let's end in kindness. That isn't hardness, it's mercy for you both. And if you ask, how do I keep my voice from shaking? Remember, you aren't alone. The fear of loss is real, but the loss of boundaries is what slowly unravels you. Choose boundaries today to protect your capacity to love tomorrow. We still have 4 more red lights, each a different costume for the same push-pull loop. But before we go on, pause, breathe, and ask, am I justifying someone else's loneliness with my own heart? If the answer makes you sag, that's the sign of awakening. From that clarity, we'll move to the next red light where your feelings were subtly denied, and you'll learn to stand with yourself without having to fight anyone. From the first red light, we step into the second, quieter on the surface, yet more corrosive beneath, the denial of your feelings. This is harm that leaves no bruise to the eye but keeps your nervous system on high alert. Avoidants often wear cold logic like a moral cloak. They don't yell or curse, yet they shave off your emotions with sentences that sound reasonable. You're too sensitive. It's not a big deal. I'm just being objective, don't be emotional. Familiar? Because it's wrapped in the language of calm and reason, you begin to doubt yourself. Maybe I really am too much. Maybe I overthink. Each time, you close your mouth a little, lower your bar a little, and unknowingly learn to ask permission to feel sad, angry, disappointed. That's when emotional safety slips out of the room like an unwelcomed guest. The denier rarely admits what they're doing. They place the burden of proof on you. You must present exhibits, texts, timelines, expressions to earn the right to feel. Lacking perfect words, they conclude, see, you have no case. But love is not a courtroom, and the heart needs no attorney. Feelings are the nervous system's data, not a verdict, a signal. When signals are muted, you don't become mature, you become numb. Let me speak as an old friend. Don't confuse composure with correctness. Much of what passes as objectivity is merely a shield against responsibility. They may invoke logic, but it runs one way, always arriving at the same destination. The problem is you. And when that script repeats enough, you start self-censoring, measuring every word, deleting long texts, promising yourself you won't bring it up again. You call it growth. In truth, you're shrinking to fit their cramped room. Back to ground truth. Emotional safety isn't about agreeing on everything or avoiding conflict. It means your feelings aren't mocked, judged, or require a permit. It means when you say, I'm hurt, they don't counter with intent. They pause for impact. When you say, I felt abandoned, they don't cite their calendar. They recognize your experience first. Without this, every I'll try is paint over cracked walls. From here, we set boundaries. Don't argue inside their maze of logic. State standards in the language of experience. For example, when I share hurt and get labeled sensitive, I feel unsafe. I need acknowledgement of feelings before we discuss reasons. Specific, calm, non-negotiable. If they reply, "So what am I supposed to say?" Give the scaffold. Start with, "I hear you're sad, divided by afraid, divided by lost." Pause 30 seconds, then we can problem solve. If they roll their eyes, "That sounds scripted," smile gently. "Yes, because we're relearning safe conversation." Learning has structure. So does love. You also need a nervous system safety plan. When invalidated, don't rush to persuade. Pause. Breathe 4-6 cycles. Label 3 words for what you feel. For example, dismissed, adrift, angry. Then respond later. "I'll revisit this tomorrow evening. I want to be heard before we analyze." A deliberate delay isn't punishment. It's down. Regulation so you don't speak from the wound. And there is one exit criterion to honor. If invalidation persists, despite clear requests and provided scaffolds, choose a kind ending. No indictment, just truth. The emotional safety this relationship needs isn't present. I can't keep shrinking to hold something that doesn't hold me. Pain will come, but braided with a new peace. The peace of no longer bargaining for the right to feel. This is our bridge to the next red light. Once denial has muted your voice, lack of responsibility keeps the story stuck, because an apology isn't, "I'm sorry if you're upset." It's, "I understand how I hurt you, and here's how I will change." We'll continue there with eyes now more awake. From red light 2, where your feelings were invalidated, we move to red light 3, returning while dodging real responsibility. This is the kind of comeback that floats in like a feather yet lands on your chest like a stone. Apologies wrapped in politeness, even tenderness, but empty of commitment. They say, "I'm sorry if you were hurt. I didn't mean it. It's in the past, let's move forward." Soothing to the ear, but functionally a pivot away from fault, shifting the focus from their behavior to your feelings and inviting you to move on instead of repairing with structure. Name it plainly. It's a pseudo-apology designed to cool the moment, not recalibrate the system. No concrete acknowledgement, no articulation of impact, no behavioral change, no timeline for verification. These are the markers that you're about to watch, a rerun with new props. Real accountability carries 4 pieces. 1. Name the behavior without evasion. I disappeared for 10 days without responding. 2. Own the impact in your language. That left you anxious, sleepless, doubting your worth. 3. Propose a repair plan, response windows, scheduled check-ins, individual therapy, boundaries with prior entanglements. 4. Time frame and metrics. Evaluate at 30 divided by 60 divided by 90 days with behavioral evidence. If it fails, accept consequences, including ending. Miss any piece, and it isn't accountability, it's appeasement. You don't need a debate. You need a clear requirement frame. Speak in calm authority. I appreciate the apology. To repair, I need 4 things. Specific acknowledgement, impact recognition, behavioral plan, time, bound metrics. Without anyone, we're repeating the past. Establish a repair ritual with specificity. For example, 1 45-minute emotional check-in weekly. Replies to emotional texts within 12 hours. Proactive scheduling. 2 therapy sessions a month with 1 learning shared. This isn't probation. It's the safety environment 2 nervous systems need to relearn togetherness. Beware slippery language. I'll try to be better. I'll care more. I won't make you sad again. These are non-verifiable. Translate to behavior. I'll reply to important messages before 10 p.m. I'll book a standing Thursday date. When overwhelmed, I'll say, I need 24 hours to regulate, not withdrawing. Vague promises soothe today but erode trust tomorrow. Another subtle trap. Outsourcing the recovery. They apologize, then hope you can understand, and suddenly you are tasked with teaching, reminding, cheerleading. You become the project manager of their change lover and coach all at once. That is emotional burnout. Genuine change has intrinsic drive. You provide witness, not a tow truck. If you find yourself scheduling, writing guidelines, building trackers, pause. I won't manage your process. If you're serious, self-manage. I'll observe and give feedback. Set exit conditions early. If within 30 days you skip our contact divided by dialogue agreements 3 times, we end without renegotiation. Why? Consequences create traction. Without them, old patterns win. Also protect yourself from repair, bombing grand gestures, gifts, trips, poetic vows, to distract from a system flaw. Gifts aren't a repair mechanism. Consistent behavior is. You're entitled to transparency of growth. While apart, what did you do to learn about attachment? What did you read? Who did you work with? What concrete practices? If the answer is emptiness or airy philosophy, the realistic conclusion is change hasn't begun. And you're allowed to choose not to reconcile even when the apology sounds beautiful. Love does not obligate you to take back someone who won't protect your emotional safety. I know this both stings and clarifies. A montage of "sorry if you're upset" may be playing in your mind. Breathe. You're not cruel for demanding standards. You're faithful to your future. From here, we gently close the door on red light 3 and step into the next, where the victim costume is donned and every story revolves around their pain. Because after dodging responsibility often comes self-victimization. They're more hurt, more misunderstood, and somehow you're apologizing again. There, we'll learn how not to let your compassion be conscripted. Now we reach red flag #4. The perpetual victim, the cleanest cloak to hide a dirty reality, using the past to avoid the present, turning you into an unpaid therapist, and pushing you into chronic guilt whenever you ask for respect. The script is familiar. Anytime you raise a concrete issue, you disappeared, you belittled me, you dodge commitment. They swing open the vault of memories, abandonment in childhood, betrayal by an ex, treacherous coworkers, an unjust world. The story is moving and may be true. But let's expose the mechanism. Real feelings are being used as an alibi for current behavior. Instead of saying "I'll repair," they say "I suffered." Instead of responsibility, they demand unconditional empathy. You are no longer a partner. You're a designated soother. And whenever you grow tired, they press the guilt button. You don't understand me. You're cold. You're just like the people who hurt me. That isn't sharing, it's control. Name it. The forever victim identity, a persona maintained to dodge growth. Beware the polished variant. Tears. A soft "I'm sorry." A nod to "I reacted from my wounds." And then, no repair plan. Tears are not a plan. "I was abandoned" doesn't answer the question. So how will you stop abandoning me now? A healing adult uses the past as context, then drags the present back to behavior. My old fear makes me withdraw. Starting this week, when I feel flooded, I'll signal and schedule a 24-hour pause. The perpetual victim uses the past as a shield, a lot of pain, talk to avoid commitment. You must discern sharing to connect from trauma dumping to escape accountability. Sharing for connection has 3 tells. 1. Appropriate timing, not hijacking the moment you need to be heard. 2. Clear purpose, to be known, not to win your concession. 3. It ends with concrete action. Trauma dumping to escape accountability. 1. Interrupts your issue. 2. Recenters on them. 3. Ends with you apologizing. If you routinely abandon your own story to comfort theirs, you've been drafted as a therapist without pay. That is emotional labor that drains safety, not builds it. Don't argue inside the compassion maze. Set structure as boundary. I respect your past, but we won't use it to excuse present behavior. Today, I need 1. Acknowledgement of what you did. 2. Recognition of its impact on me. 3. A time-bound change plan. When they protest, "You're heartless," answer in calm authority. Empathy isn't permission for recurring harm. Honesty is how I love you best. If they keep pulling you into the guilt spiral, end the exchange. I'll listen when we discuss behavior and solutions. If this is just a pain monologue, let's pause. Watch for DARVO. Deny. Attack reverse victim, divided by offender. Deny your claim. Attack you, then flip roles. The pattern. You present facts. They deny. You're making it up. You persist. They attack. You're controlling. You tire. They reverse. I'm the one being abused. Do not defend with lengthy essays. Defend with short borders. I'm done for now. I'll discuss when the facts are acknowledged. Repeat it like a border mantra. And don't let your compassion be conscripted. You can empathize without taking the job. A role clarity line frees you from the trap. I'm your partner, not your therapist. If you need therapy, I support you seeing a professional. If they mock therapy, that's a red flag within the red flag. They want to be soothed, not to be healed. Set exit conditions clearly here. If, when I bring up needs divided by injuries, the conversation consistently pivots to your pain is bigger and stops no acknowledgement, no solutions, I will leave the call divided by meeting. If it repeats 3 times in 30 days, I will end the relationship. Without consequences, the victim show gets renewed for another season funded by you. I say this as an old friend standing outside the storm. We all have history, but history has no right to use you as a seawall. Grown love is 2 people carrying their own packs. If they unload theirs onto you and call it partnership, hand the pack back kindly and walk on. And this is our bridge to the final red flag, the most dangerous corner of emotional power plays: humiliation. When the victim costume no longer controls the room, some will take one step further, shrinking you to feel taller. There, we won't just expose, we'll set an absolute safety lock. From the cloak of the perpetual victim, we enter the darkest chamber of emotional power play. Red flag, #5 humiliation, in public or in private. This is no longer evasion or subtle manipulation. It's a direct strike at dignity. They weaponize the secrets you entrusted, compare you to others to reduce you, slip barbed jokes in front of friends, or whisper degradations in the kitchen, in bed private enough that no one witnesses, deep enough that you question your own reality. Expose the mechanism. Humiliation is a control tool. When you shrink, they grow. When you're ashamed, you go quiet. When you doubt yourself, their manipulation bandwidth widens. This isn't blunt honesty or just teasing. It is a violation of emotional personhood, the final boundary. At this line, there is no second chance. No couples therapy, no wait and see, no one last try for old time's sake. Someone willing to use your secrets as weapons has crossed an ethical Rubicon, and once crossed, it's easier to cross again. Spot the common forms. 1. Comparative put-downs. My ex understood me better. Your friend makes more. Other people can do it, why can't you? 2. Secret exposure. Sharing your family issues, finances, fears, intimate details to teach you a lesson. 3. Attacks on body divided by mind, divided by competence, mocking looks, intelligence, career, or joking about sexual ability. 4. Calculated social silence, ignoring texts in front of others, blanking you in groups, making you invisible. The common denominator: you feel small, ashamed, alone, and then wonder, am I overreacting? That doubt is proof the humiliation landed. Hear this from an old friend on your side. No one accidentally humiliates the person they love. Humiliation is a choice, often triggered when their ego feels threatened, when power must be reasserted, when the victim costume stops working. You don't need more analysis of why. You need to exit the blast radius. On this flag, persuasion is the wrong battlefield. We don't explain so they get it. We draw borders so you're safe. Set emergency, non-negotiable boundaries. State the fact briefly. Those comparisons divided by secret reveals divided by put-downs are humiliation. Impose immediate consequence. I'm leaving this conversation divided by event, divided by call now. Name the sole condition for future contact. If you want to speak later, send a written acknowledgement and a no recurrence plan, and agree to professional counseling. Otherwise, we're done. Do not accept apologies for convenience. A real apology must repair dignity, public correction for public humiliation, restoration of privacy after breaches, verification window for no repeat. Without all three, every "I didn't mean it" is a talisman for next time. You also need a personal safety plan. Separate channels, mute, block if needed. Lean on your support network, friends, family, professionals. Document if escalation occurs. Screenshots, incident notes. Not for revenge, but to protect yourself if the abuse deepens into psychological violence or social isolation. Remember, shame grows in the dark. Bring your experience into safe light. Some will hesitate. What if it was just a slip? Distinguish a mistake from a pattern. A mistake is isolated, immediately owned, properly repaired. A pattern is repeated, rationalized, blame reversed, and please don't let their childhood, their pain, or your loneliness become a get-out-of-jail cord for humiliation. Love can tolerate imperfections. Dignity cannot. When dignity is trampled, what remains is dependency with prettier names. If you need a line to leave without shaking, borrow this. I do not permit secrets or comparisons to be used against me. Effective now. I'm ending all contact. If something essential must be handled, use email written, time-stamped, calm, clear, no further brief. In protecting dignity, you're preserving your future capacity to love. No one can love deeply while their heart must bow to survive. This concludes the series of red lights and begins something for you, a higher standard where feelings are acknowledged, responsibility enacted, the victim costume retired, and your dignity is the house rule. From here, we'll move to the closing frame, daily boundary operations, small, strong rituals, so each morning you no longer ask, should I endure a little more? But stand steady in, I choose myself, and I choose love that is worthy of me. From the moment you safeguarded your dignity at the final red flag, we step into the most decisive ground where healthy love stops being an idea and becomes a discipline, the non-negotiable boundaries. Treat these as the minimum contract that keeps your heart safe and respected the foundation poured before any emotion is allowed to rise. First, define the relationship and cadence of contact before deep intimacy. No more, let's see where it goes. No more profound intimacy while calling each other friends. Say it calmly and plainly. What are we exclusive or not? How many times a week do we meet? What's our response window for messages? We agree on this before going further. Clarity doesn't kill romance. It protects romance from toxic ambiguity. When cadence is framed as commitment, for example, replies to emotional messages within 12-24 hours, advance notice of unavailability, a standing weekly date, you send a message. I don't buy a ticket to the push-pull ride. Next, hard conversations within 48-72 hours, no smoothing it over. All relationships have friction. What separates them is how you handle it. Set the rule. When a hurt occurs, both parties schedule a clear window, within 72 hours, to sit down, name the event, describe the impact, and commit to repair actions. No prolonged silence as punishment. No make-up sex as a rug to sweep under. A deliberate delay up to 72 hours is to calm the nervous system, not to let responsibility evaporate. Third, an accountability plan. They must articulate what they've learned, what they'll do, how it will be measured. No more, I'll try, I promise, but a structured plan. Readings divided by practices on attachment, individual or group therapy. A flood, signal practice when overwhelmed. I need 24 hours to regulate. Let's talk tomorrow at 8 p.m. A 45-minute weekly emotional check-in and behavioral metrics to track. On-time responses. Number of times they initiate hard talk, tense moments handled with the new frame. Require 30 divided by 60 divided by 90-day reviews where promises are checked against behavioral data. Nothing changes without new habits. No habit takes root without measurement. Finally, exit criteria. Repeated violations end. No haggling. This is not punishment. It is loyalty to your life. Stated early and clearly. If 3 times in 30 days you skip our contact divided by dialogue agreements, belittle me, or disappear without signaling, I will end this without renegotiation. Consequences are the spine of boundaries. Without them, every boundary is a blessing wish. Bind yourself to. Keep the dialogue dates. State needs in the language of impact, request, agreement. End conversations when disrespected, and return only when safety conditions are met. Remember, boundaries aren't a locked wall. They're a hinged door, open when safe, closed when harmful. One more essential, embody calm authority. You don't argue to win, you arrange to be clear. You don't threaten to leave, you state the conditions for staying. Your steady decisiveness is the antidote to avoidance. It teaches both nervous systems that intimacy travels with responsibility, and love no longer demands the price of dignity. With these 4 boundaries laid down, you'll notice everything shifts. Apologies become precise, silences shorten, withdrawals get named and signaled, and you, for the first time in a long time, Sleep well because you no longer stand guard over a love that won't guard you. From here, to keep these boundaries alive day to day, we need operating rituals, small, sturdy habits, conversation scripts, check-in schedules, a pause rule when triggered, and the safety net you build around yourself. In the next section, we'll bundle these into a daily toolkit, so you won't just know the right thing, you'll do the right thing every morning, every week, every season of love. If your heart feels both tender and lighter, that's a good sign. The pain has been named, and you're standing at the threshold of clarity. This journey wasn't to make you hard, it was to make you clear about your worth, your limits, and the kind of love you choose to remain in. Remember, the 5 red flags aren't a verdict on someone else. They are your escape map, dating divided by sleeping with others during the breakup, invalidating your feelings, returning while dodging responsibility, perpetual victimhood, and humiliating you in public or private. If even one appears and repeats, your answer isn't justification, it's your step away. From today, you hold non-negotiable boundaries. Define the relationship and cadence before deep intimacy, hard conversations within 48, 72 hours, a measurable accountability plan, and clear exit criteria, no haggling. When these live in behavior, you no longer need to prove you're worthy, you simply live your standard. The right person will step in, the unready will self-select out. That's not a loss, it's refinement. If you're at a crossroads, 3 lines to straighten your spine. I won't trade dignity for love. Real love travels with responsibility, not empty promises. When safety is absent, I choose to leave. And if part of you still hesitates, place a hand on your chest and say, I choose myself, and I choose love that is worthy of me. Every lasting healing begins there. Thank you for staying to the end. If this resonated, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who needs it. Next in this series, I'll send you a daily operations toolkit, safe conversation scripts, check-in routines, a pause rule when triggered, and self-regulation steps so your heart stays protected even when life shakes. You're not alone, and from today, you're no longer without boundaries. See you in the next piece.